Notice is hereby given of a Friendswood City Council regular meeting to be held at 4:30 on Monday, July 11th, 2016, at Friendswood City Hall, Council Chambers, 910 South Friendswood Drive, Friendswood, Texas, regarding the items of business according to the agenda below. Call to order. Invocation by Father Jeff Wynn, Good Shepherd Episcopal Church, and then please remain standing while we do the Pledge of Allegiance to the United States and Texas.
Good evening. I've been asked to help make this meeting short, so I'm going to offer a couple brief prayers. Would you please join me in prayer? And as we do so, we remember the events of the past week, the difficult events throughout our nation, and especially here in Dallas in our own state. And we remember the people who are grieving, lost ones, police forces now feeling more stress, and city governments knowing that they bear a great responsibility to bring about justice and peace for all its citizens. So would you please join me in a couple prayers? Almighty God, our Heavenly Father, send down upon those who hold office in this country and our own state and in this city of Friendswood. Send down upon them the spirit of wisdom, charity, and justice, that with steadfast purpose they may faithfully serve in their offices to promote the well-being of all people. And grant, O God, that your holy and life-giving Spirit may so move every human heart, especially the hearts of the people of this land, that barriers which divide us may crumble, suspicions disappear, and hatreds cease, that our divisions being healed, we may live in justice and peace through Jesus Christ our Lord. And please bless this council with your presence this evening. Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible.
You're right about that. Communications from the public. Do you have any cards yet? Okay. To comply with provisions of the Open Meetings Act, the City Council may not deliberate on items discussed under this agenda item. The council may refer this item to the city manager or direct this item to be placed on the next regular council agenda. PowerPoint presentations are not conducted during the citizens' comment period. Laura Higgins.
Hello, my name is Laura Higgins. My family and I have lived in Friendswood since 1993. We moved to the Sun Meadow subdivision. I am here tonight in speaking in favor of the PUD. The first developer that tried to move into the golf course, I was also very vigilant in finding out what his plans were. My family and I were opposed to that. I speak tonight in favor of Mr. Park Patterson. I think that he is going to do what's right for that parcel of land. I would love for it to stay a green space. I wish some of the parks money that had been passed had gone to buy that land. It didn't happen, so now I hope that you listen to what Mr. Park Patterson has to say. I think he's going to help the drainage that we have the problems we have in Sun Meadow, and I think that he has done his homework as far as developing a subdivision for Sun Meadow. I still think that traffic is a big, big problem on 528. I think the council needs to get together with TxDOT because it's only going to get worse, no matter what happens out there. Thank you.
Thank you, Laura. Marilyn Turner?
I'm Marilyn Turner. I live out in Sun Meadow. Live there. We just had our 30th anniversary of living in our home out there. We back up to Sugar Creek. Our home did flood in the 43 inches, but we were not there at that time. So drainage is a big issue to me. I vote in favor of letting Mr. Patterson have his PUD. He has expressed that he is happy to go over and above the drainage and help with the culverts under St. Cloud, and that pleases me to no end. But, you know, what I like about the plan is that we can get 47 acres. That's 3 times Stevenson Park, donated. We don't have to pay for it, just upkeep it, or we find an entity that will take care of it. 47 acres. That's 3 times Stevenson Park. That's incredible. All right, and also the impact that the PUD will have is it will impact only 103 homes out in Sun Meadow. If the current zoning continues, it will impact 263 homes. Those homes, this 263, have a good chance of not having any green space at all, no trail, just a fence behind them and a new home. I just cannot believe that the municipal code that y'all have to refer to, it has a PUD in there. PUDs are okay. They have been. We have several subdivisions that are PUDs. The other thing is there's also municipal codes as far as trees. Mr. Patterson is adamant about taking care of the trees. We've got some beautiful specimens, but if you go with the current one, I don't know how they can maintain those trees. The other thing is, I'm getting a little nervous. I'm passionate, let me tell you that. I do believe that Mr. Patterson, this may be one of his last things that he wants to do, and I believe that he wants this to be a project that he can be proud of, and I do think that he's put a lot of effort into it. I think he's looked at it very seriously. This infrastructure in Sun Meadow is out of date, and y'all are gonna need to address that eventually. But what he's going to do is gonna do nothing but help it. And he's listened to the people in Sun Meadow, the traffic patterns, he's paid attention. The trees, he's paid attention. He's just a very receptive person. Oh, the other thing was, if you figure that you want 90-foot lots, you're gonna have to increase the price of that property. If you do that, at present, at the PUD, to qualify for a loan for those types of homes, if you had 2 people, beginning teachers, let's say a couple, they wanted to live out there, they might just qualify for a home out there. If they wanted a new car, they wouldn't. If they had children daycare, they couldn't qualify for homes. So you make a 90-foot yard, they're not gonna qualify.
Thank you very much. We'll move on to item 5, refunding bonds discussion in our work session. Oh, I'm sorry, what? Where are they? Sorry about that, folks. Okay, go ahead.
So, you know you got 3 minutes to speak, and when you get the other part, you got one.
I thought you were scoring soccer.
Kind of feels like it.
Adam Hill?
I'm Adam Hill, 917 Sunset. I'm here to speak against the PUD for Sun Meadow Friendswood Trails. I'm going to show you the planning and zoning manual that I got off the internet today, and it specifically says on page 34 that in no case shall a PUD be used for the sole purpose of circumventing the intent of the city ordinances or plans. Clearly does that, 100%. When the Planning and Zoning Commission gave you a unanimous decision, they on something, they violated their own guidelines. It is not consistent with the vision of this council that has told repeatedly 90-foot lots. I've asked, 90-foot lots. Vision 2020 was created by some very smart people before us. The intent of it was to benefit our schools and protect our economic development. They determined 80% residential, 20% commercial, perfect mix. This plat fails handedly. There's very little commercial up front. I would like to ask the question, why is this developer being able to violate worthwhile ordinances? Why is he any different than myself? Why is FISD promoting this development? I've asked around. I've found no one that can tell me that FISD has ever promoted any residential development. I would like to know who asked. Who asked them to come promote this? I've been told it's the fear of the apartment complex up front. The apartment complex is just a fear. If you look at that from a developer standpoint, I'm happy to stay in the workshop and answer any questions. There's not nearly enough room for any apartment to come up here and make any money. They're not going to do it. The land is too small. We cannot let the smoke and mirrors of trees, apartments, multifamily sway us from breaking our ordinances that has made Friendswood what it is. I do hear the voices of Sun Meadow. The tract developed will increase your values. It will increase your drainage. It's going to fix a lot of things, but it needs to be done with the law of Friendswood. Ordinances, corrections, not a law. This city is an example all around. We've got the most economically run schools. Schools. We've got schools. We've got the city. We've got the safest police. And I don't think we need to change that for one tract of land because of a tree or some drainage. I believe in consistency. I'm consistent every day in my beliefs. I'm consistent in my integrity. I'm consistent in my business ethics. Most importantly, I'm consistent as a dad. I am not perfect, but I have been told by this council 90 feet lots. That is consistent. Your planning and zoning gave you a unanimous decision against that. They are not in sync with what this council is putting forward, and I think it needs to be addressed. This is not the only item that I feel that way, but I have an opportunity with a microphone, so I said it. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Jerry Flieger, and then Jamie Ashby.
Jerry Flieger, I live in Sun Meadow since initial military assignment in 1979. It's supposed to be a 3-year detail to NASA. So 30-some years later, we're still here, so are my kids and my grandkids. I've watched a couple attempts to develop the golf course. I watched it go down. I told you the last time I spoke, the reason a lot of us moved out there was the green space and the environment. The last 10 years or so, it's not been very pleasant. We now have a developer who has brought a plan that I think adds real value to our neighborhood. And it may not be 90-foot lots throughout, but I would suggest that establishing a firm guideline on 90-foot lots sometimes flies in the face of the quality of life. And I would look for you to use good judgment in what's in the best interest of those of us that actually live in the neighborhood. And consider what Mr. Patterson has put forward. I think it's in the best interest of all of us that live out there, and I think it will add value to Friendswood. And it will give us a range of houses, some of which our younger couples can maybe afford. That's getting to be something that's just about impossible to find in Friendswood. And we need to make land and homes available for our teachers, so they're not living over in League City or out in Alvin or over in Pearland because they can't find a place that's affordable here. We don't need to have all big McMansions. And for some of us that are getting a little older, we're gonna be selling our houses and looking for something a little smaller. And so it has some attractive options out there. So I would ask you to give that due consideration. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Jamie Ashby, and I've lived in Sun Meadow for 29 years. Councilman Rocky, I would first like to tell you how much we appreciate you showing your support for the citizens of Sun Meadow by the fact that you moved for approval of the PUD at the last council meeting. What you did shows that you care about us and our quality of life, and we really appreciate that. Councilman Rocky apparently sees the merits of the PUD as opposed to the current zoning. The PUD includes 410 homes with no fence-to-fence platting, and that's very important to us. No new streets into Sun Meadow or Windsong, a drainage plan that includes 5 retention ponds, and enhanced improvements to the drainage on the horseshoe, 80 acres of green space, and preservation of some of our beautiful trees. But under current zoning, there would be 638 homes, and some of those could be multifamily. There is fence-to-fence platting, only 2 retention ponds, minimum drainage requirements met, no improvements to the horseshoe drainage, minimal green space, and no tree retention promised. Who would want that? When you read the description of a PUD and its purposes, it is easy to see why Mr. Patterson is asking for this rezoning request. Some of the characteristics include a unified design elements, innovation, minimization of impact to drainage, environment, traffic, and public services, protection and enhancement of the visual qualities, and my favorite, creation of a design that is suitable for a property that is restricted by its location and shape, and that certainly describes the property surrounding Sun Meadow. We are called Friendswood because our founders were members of the Friends Church, and they chose this site for settling because they loved the huge oak trees along the creek banks. So there is a historical foundation for saving the trees. Developing under current zoning would have been a lot easier for Mr. Patterson, but he chose to create a PUD because he wants to create a development that is in harmony with Sun Meadow and meets the needs and desires of those of us who live there. Sun Meadow is a beautiful, mature neighborhood filled with hardworking people. We know our neighbors. We share in our joys and our sorrows. We've been uncertain for the last 8 years of what was going to happen to us, but I think we've come to grips with the fact that our old golf course is finally going to go away. The approval of the PUD would help to soften the blow for us and show that you care about Sun Meadow residents and our quality of life the same way that Councilman Rocky showed us. It's really easy. All you have to do is the right thing. Thank you.
Thank you, Jamie. We'll move on to item 5, the work session. A, refunding bonds discussion. Cindy? Pardon me? There's no more cards. Do you want to talk? Get it, I can't. Would you like to speak, Faye? Just need to give somebody that card. There you go. Is there anybody else that has a card that I'm not aware of? American Express or MasterCard? Debit card. Okay, here you can have that.
I know to turn my card in. I did it on purpose. I wonder if anybody, I'm sure some of these that have spoken have never seen this, but this is, I'm sure Mr. Hale has. I guess 30 or 40 years ago. Would be that, and it's interesting to sit here and listen to what I'm hearing, because I already have it in emails. I have what's going to be on your agenda for July. I have what's going to be on your agenda for August. And I thought that the mayor, the city manager, assistant city manager, and council, or whoever says that, but I guess not. So, when you put something out in emails, it's there, isn't it? And, it said that anyway, there's no point in me saying any more on that. I got it all. So, Mr. Mayor, I think you've done a good job in setting the agenda in the past, and I believe you're very capable to set it in the future. And I appreciate that. I just got through saying I have emails that's got all that set down for July and August. And I just got through saying, and Mayor Pro Tem, I left you out. I think you're in on the agenda setting too, so sorry about that. And if Mr. Park Patterson already is going to place something on for August, I wish that he would share that with the rest of Sun Meadow. Have it in emails, what I'm saying. I think that's all I'm going to say, because I don't want to say too much. Thank you.
Now can we go to item 5? Okay. Cindy, refunding bonds?
Yes, sir. John Roebuck is with BOSC, is going to present refunding opportunity. There was information in your packet, but he updated it, so I'll pass that out, and he'll go ahead and
Do you
begin.
have enough? Make sure you have. Thank you, Cindy. Mayor, council members, John Roebuck with BOSC. I'm sure you know why I'm here before you. You all seen the market and seen the interest rates. I'll wait till I get the handout, but would y'all turn to page 1. I believe in your packet, we've updated the rates since then, and actually, we found out late Thursday, early Friday, that the rates we were getting from our national publication, they had restated the last 4 weeks, so it looks a lot better than it did in the presentation you have in your packet. But if you look to the far right, this is the bond buyer index. This is our weekly average of municipal bonds and their interest rates they're sold for and trade in the open market for. If you look to the far right, the blue line there is general obligation index, and the red line is the revenue index. You'll notice that line just continues to drop. We're currently at a 2.80% on the general obligation index, and to put that in perspective, that's 2.27% below the historical average. It's an all-time low. Back in 1962, I think we hit 315, so we blew through that in the last couple of weeks, which is why I'm out here. Because of the low interest rates, if you turn to page 2, excuse me, the city does have an opportunity to refund some bonds. The city's got a Series 2009 Waterworks and Sewer System Revenue Bonds, outstanding amount of about $9.4 million that we can refund for interest cost savings. Tonight we're here to show you 2 different options. On page 3, we show us refunding these water and sewer bonds with general obligation debt. The advantage of refunding water and sewer bonds and GO debt, general obligation debt, is number 1, the city's got a higher rating on the general obligation side, and number 2, the rates are lower because general obligations sell better in the marketplace because they're less risky. We've talked to Cindy and Roger about what that entails. What that would mean if we decide to do this is that on an annual basis, actually I think Cindy, y'all do it on a monthly basis, you transfer the money over for that payment instead of levying on the tax rate for it. It's just an accounting transfer, and it's just behind the scenes, and we can generate more savings by doing a general obligation refunding. If you look in the right column there, the estimated savings, we can save about $73,000 a year over the life of the bonds. We will not, this is not a restructuring, we won't be pushing the principal out, we're actually matching the principal to principal just to generate interest cost savings. And also down there at the bottom, by refunding these water and sewer bonds on the general obligation side, we do away with the reserve fund requirement that's required for water and sewer bonds. So that's going to save the city additional $853,000. So the $1.2 million plus the $853 is almost $2.1 million in benefit to the city by doing a general obligation refunding. The second option is on page 4 there, is to refund the water and sewer bonds with water and works and sewer system refunding revenue bonds. Excuse me, I'm talking way too fast. I apologize. Again, same benefit savings. The savings there is on the right. We can save about $988,000 interest cost savings. Again, not a restriction, it's a refunding purely for interest cost savings. We'd be able to free up about $100,000 of the reserve fund requirement on those 2009 bonds for a total benefit of the city of about $1.1 million. So the GO refunding, general obligation refunding, saves about $1 million more for the city. And then on the final page is a tentative schedule of events should we decide to go forward. We're actually here tonight to ask you to sign or approve a parameter ordinance, which gives the authority to Roger to sign on behalf of the city when we're ready to sell the bonds, as long as this refunding meets certain parameters. And those parameters are a net present value savings percentage of 5%, over 5%, and we can't exceed over $10 million. I think it's actually $15 million in the refunding itself, principal amount. So as long as we generate more than the 5% and we don't exceed $15 million for the bond issue, we'll take the market. Once we get it sold, we have Roger approve it, and we're done. Y'all have any questions?
You had me at $2 million.
Yeah, I was gonna ask, I mean, other than the no-brainer aspect of the 2 million, is there any advantage to the second one?
Just keeps on the water and sewer side.
Councilman Hill?
And when are you planning on selling the bonds?
As soon as possible. If you all approve this tonight, we'll start working on the offering document, have rating calls, diligence calls, select underwriters, and enter the market as fast as possible. We have on the schedule August 22nd, and then closing September 15th. It takes about 30 days to get everything on the
Think the rate won't go up by then?
I hope not. Everything I've read from our internal and external economists say that rates are in this range for a while. There's no indications it's going to go up. The election may have an impact on rates, but we'll be wrapped up well before then.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Councilman Enox?
Now, we've been trying to push the length of our debt to shorter periods. Any reason why we didn't look at 15 years instead of 20?
We're just trying to match it up. Again, if you shorten it up, you lose some of the savings in the front end and get all the savings in the back end. So we're trying to recognize the savings equally throughout the life of the bonds.
And interest rates are so low.
Yes, sir.
It has my support.
Any other questions? Comments? Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Item B, Black Hawk wastewater treatment plant capacity.
I'm here to spend some of the money you just saved. Yes, sir.
Yeah. That's the way we roll.
You may recall for the last, I guess, over 18 months, we've been discussing I&I issues related to our sanitary sewer system. We've been discussing the third clarifier over at our wastewater treatment plant. In the midst of all these discussions, the City of Houston has indicated to us they're not needing all the capacity they currently have within the facility. This is a facility that we share with Baybrook Mud 1, Harris County Mud 55, City of Houston, as well as ourselves. We're here before you tonight to just get some general guidance on the purchase of 1,000 connections at roughly $1,200 a connection for sewer capacity in the plant. That's the same price the City of Houston charges their ratepayers impact fees every time they put a new lot on the ground or a new connection. In addition to that, we'll need a roughly $166,000 for additional cost towards the clarifier. Good news is we have proceeds from our 2016 water and sewer revenue bonds that was sold this past January, plus water sewer working capital. So with that, if there's any questions council has, we are looking to purchase an additional 4,000 connection, or 3,000 and some change connections over the next 5 years.
Councilmember Rocky?
So this takes us to 55% of the capacity, is that right?
Currently, this purchase will take us to 55%. And then with the additional 3,000, we'll be around the 62, 63%.
Yeah, as the liaison to this, and I've been following this the last couple of years, and we've talked about it several times, this is really the cheapest capacity we'll ever buy.
This initial purchase is the only one that has an impact on the third clarifier. After the third clarifier is complete, any additional connections that are purchased will have no impact on that project.
Murad, once this is complete, this will get us to where we need to be towards build-out?
This will get us closer. We need to purchase the additional 3,000 connections over the next 5 years. And assuming that there are not regulatory changes, which is a big assumption from TCEQ, this should get us pretty darn close.
Good. Thank you, Moran.
Thank you.
Item C, capital projects update, Patrick.
Good evening, Mayor, Mayor Pro Tem, City Council. As I do each month, go through our capital projects update, which updates us on where we're at on our several different projects within the city. The
No, we ain't singing. Karaoke? Daddy play fiddle. This time is expired. Put the red card up.
red card up, all right, so I'll go through these pretty quickly. I'm aiming for 86 slides, but we'll go shorter today. Our first project we're going to talk about today, potentially.
I think the other two items will go quicker than expected, so take your time.
Fair enough.
Batteries.
Okay.
That's very good.
First project is our library contract time, 400 days. Notice to proceed was issued in April 6, 2015. The updated substantial completion date is July 28th by numbers. The contractor anticipates being at substantial completion by the August 1st council meeting. What we're seeing right here is our view from 518. This is the facade showing the brick wainscoting, and the plywood is where the windows are going to be going. Our next picture is out front. This is the children's area. The third one is from the entrance as you go in. You may notice on the floors, new tile. On the left is the checkout area, the new desk for that, and the new lighting above it. This is the children's area. Actually, just because of how good the lighting is, this was taken this morning without any of the lights on. I thought it came out very nicely. Obviously, during the day when we are doing things or when Mary's doing things, we'll have the lights on, it'll be even brighter. Next project we have to talk about is our fire station. When we met last time, we had you can go to the next one. I showed a time delay of the entire site. There was an issue with the camera. We're trying to work with the manufacturer on why it got some water into the waterproof container. It's not how that's supposed to work, but nevertheless, if you were to go out there on Friday, Jeff Newfer, our communications specialist, was able to get up there and take a nice panoramic view of what they've done. Essentially, what they've primarily worked on is the underground infrastructure, and off on the left they're working on the foundation with the piers themselves for the actual building. Sports Park, one of the items that you'll see later this evening is acceptance of our paving and sidewalks project. There are 2 other components with the sports park that are needing to be completed, and from a construction standpoint, they are complete. It's more administrative that we're working through on the contracts. But this is the Corporal Stephen Schultz Sports Park. This is the view from the closest to 528. You can see the crepe myrtles that were placed in there, and the sign that James was able to get erected, and behind it are the new 4 fields. Yes, sir. I believe they are one and the same. And they are being watered. Lake Friendswood, later this evening, we'll go over a request for proposals that we went out for and our recommendation for award by council. This was taken at dawn. It looked better on my camera, not necessarily in here, but basically this is the view on the road looking into the gated area, the gated parking lot with the lake behind it. Stevenson Park and Old City Park connecting trails. Later this evening, we have another item on there for acceptance of the work done by Tandem Services. This is our view standing at Old City Park as we go into the property that we purchased. You're going towards there's quite a large elevation change, which is why we have the handrails as we see. In essence, there's roughly a 9 to 10 foot difference between where we're standing here and where the base of the bridge is. So you have 2 areas, one coming from Winding Way, which is off on the far right, and the portion on the left is coming from Old City Park as we go down to the bridge. As you were to come across the bridge and heading towards Stevenson Park, it winds through.
Pretty.
As you come through that clearing, you're almost to Shadwell. And then there's Shadwell right there as you cross into the pavilion. We'll have a ribbon cutting sometime in the very near future.
Make one comment?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
John Mizell, who's the neighbor of that bridge and has worried about how it'll look for the last several years, called me and told me he thought it looked spectacular. So he's happy with it, which I think is a good deal.
One of the other things, James, Tony, and myself were actually out there doing the substantial completion walkthrough, and there were a couple residents that live on Chapel Hill, people that had said they were in opposition to it, had voiced their opposition to James, and now, hey, she admitted that she was going to send an email that she was very much in favor and use the trail 2 to 3 times a day. There are several citizens out there that may have been in opposition but have seen how good the project has come out and are very much in favor of it. Downtown street pavers. Our goal was to have this project done before 4th of July. Obviously, we did not reach our goal. We are complete from Shadwell up until this northernmost drive. These are pictures that show that, and this is the northernmost drive that's being taken out now. We're anticipating having an item on the August agenda or being substantially complete by the time we get to the August agenda for this driveway. Street bond projects. The first 2 pictures you're going to see of West Shadow Bend. This is from Laurel looking towards 518. Traffic flows in both east and west direction. As we flip around, the majority of the pavement between Woodlawn and Shadwell has been poured. There's a little bit of curb work, and we're waiting on the concrete breaks on the concrete itself before we start completely opening that up. This picture right here is of Towns Road. We've come into a couple different, mainly one main problem as they've been demoing the road. The services for the water lines were located about 8 inches below the existing pavement. So as they're busting up the pavement, they've broken several of the lines. We've worked with the contractor in strategically breaking them and then breaking this other side of the road, and we've been replacing the service lines so that customers aren't inconvenienced and we're able to have construction move a lot smoother. Otherwise, when they were demoing the other side, we'd be breaking the same lines that we've already fixed once or twice before. Yes, sir.
What size is that service line on Towns Road?
Going across the road, it's a 1-inch service that's broken onto two 3/4 inch meters. What we're doing is replacing it with I believe they're replacing it with a 1.5 inch size line and it's putting it onto two 1-inch meters.
Okay, and you putting it any deeper in the ground?
Yes, sir. We are putting it substantially deeper in the ground.
Okay.
Otherwise, we're breaking our own
What
lines.
size is the header running down the road?
It's probably either a 6 or an 8.
Okay. And we're not having to replace that? Just
We are
the-
not having to replace that.
just the branch
just
connections?
the branches going to the
Okay.
far side services.
Okay. Thank you.
Whispering Pines Avenue, Friendswood Link Road. There are 2 items on the agenda later pertaining to the same project. The contractor has been working towards having substantial completion next month with formal acceptance by City Council sometime in September. This is a view from the bridge itself looking towards 518. As of today, they do have all of the paving lanes have been poured. I've mainly been working on the driveways. This is closer towards 518, but still looking in that same direction, just at around the bend, I believe at 206 Whispering Pines. Water plants 2 and 7. This is water plant 2. They're on Castlewood. They are continuing to make progress. They've been focusing on electrical work, which they're still working on here. We're looking at a couple more months before we're before you on completion for that. The next picture is of water plant 7. We were planning on getting it on the agenda for today. However, because it had taken so long to get to that point, I did not submit it, so it will be on the August 1st agenda for acceptance by City Council. They did pass all of their tests, including the generator test. That is a new generator and recoding of the existing ground storage tank. Next couple slides don't necessarily have pictures. Lift station 3, we had an issue with the gravity line from 518 back to the existing lift station. We ended up suspending time. We have worked on that issue, and the contractor is mobilizing and coming back out to finish that work. Estimated completion date is September, with formal acceptance either later in September or at the October meeting. Lift station 18, their substantial completion date is later this month. They're probably a little bit behind on that, but we look for also a September acceptance on lift station 18. The final item that we have this evening is our sanitary sewer system assessment phase 2. In grand scheme, what that is, our contractor slash engineer, RJN Group, have been out in the Autumn Creek area, and then also today today they were over in Edgebrook as well as Friday doing smoke testing and items of the like in those areas. And that, yes, sir.
And maybe James can answer, but I understand there's an Eagle Scout project for the dog park?
That would be more of a James Toney question.
All right.
Thanks, sir.
Yes, the City of Friendswood and the Parks and Recreation Department is working with an Eagle Scout. His name is Caden, and he's working on the dog park at Old City Park.
Thank you, Patrick.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Item D, Mo, Friendswood Trails discussion.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. As you know, this PUD application has been going through the system for a number of months now. At the last council meeting, there was a work session and then followed by an ordinance later on that evening.
in which the item did not secure a second. At the request of council, a work session has been placed on this agenda this evening. There is an updated land plan that has a greater number of 90-foot lots than what was presented in the original PUD application. The applicant is here tonight to answer any questions you may have related to this project, and then I can try and answer anything you may have as well.
Thank you. Councilmember Rocky?
I was the one that asked for the, to be put on the agenda again, and I would like to ask the developer if he could explain what's changed between the last time we saw it.
Yes, thank you, Mayor and Council. My name is Park Patterson. I'm here with Harvey Doring, my business partner, and Sel Fent, our engineer. In short, the lot count was 410 and had lots ranging from 55s to 120s, had 55s, 60s, 70s, and 120s. We now have added another layer of lots, and we removed some of the 70s and turned those into 90s. We decreased some of the less desirable 120s and turned those into 90s. So the bottom line is we have more 90s than we had before. And the total lot count now is 424. It went up by 14 lots, so that's about 3%. Everything else has remained the same with regard to the parks, everything in green, which is either a park or open space or trail. Everything that we have committed to regarding drainage remains the same. Everything on traffic interaction and streets with Sun Meadow is the same that we presented at the previous meeting. So there is no other changes whatsoever other than adding a layer of 90s in place of the 70s. And a decrease of some of the 120s to 90s. And you'll see that in all of the 90s and the 120s are in orange, which is phase 3, the furthest north portion of the property.
Yeah, I'd like to, well, one, I was the one that asked this to be back on the agenda because I did not feel that we had done a service to our community by having a discussion on this last time. And I thought that our citizens, had a right to know where we were individually. And I've spent a lot of time looking at this project and reading our ordinances, and I know we have a 90-foot ordinance. And when you look at the 90-foot ordinance, it really has two purposes. It's overall, it drives overall density, and it's an appearance thing if houses are closer together versus farther apart. I believe this development has actually, by not building on some of the land they could and leaving some of the green spaces, actually decreased the density from what could be done. And I think, they are going to build fine homes in here throughout. And it does take potential, which I realize is only a potential, of apartments off the rolls here. Adds a lot of green space, saves trees, has done a tremendous amount of work on where the traffic will flow, where the water is going to flow. In the end, and there's been some, I think, some discussion about this from people, is it's not an argument of will we put this development in or will it stay green space forever? It's owned by a bank which has the opportunity to make money and is going to sell it. And as we all know, Friendswood is a highly, highly desirable place to live, and somebody's going to want to come in and to build on it. And they could build on the current plan right now, and it would put 200 or 300 more homes than this plan does. So, I have tried to stay neutral on this and make sure I got enough information. I've listened, I've read all the letters that people have written in. For those of you who have written to us, we do get them. I think this is probably about as the nicest development we're going to get for this piece of property. And to some of the questions that came up, somebody asked earlier about who asked the school district for their opinion. That was me at the very first time it came in here. I actually told the developer I would never vote for this until I heard from the school district, which, he went and talked to them, and they have an opinion. So I am in support of this right now. I know, I realize tonight we're not going to vote on it, and we will talk about it coming up on the agenda for a vote in the future. But I think this is a good development for this piece of property.
Next. Anybody else?
I got some comments.
Councilmember Hill?
I'm gonna give the council a little history lesson on 90-foot lots. I'm gonna name subdivisions that were developed by Friendswood developers, Friendswood citizens. We'll start with Imperial Estates 1 and 2, Imperial Chateau, Imperial Gardens, developed by Leon Brown, one of the old, long-standing members of the community. Friendswood Forest, this is not the forest of Friendswood, this is Friendswood Forest, was developed by Rex Clausen. Those are 200 by 200 lots. Eagle Lakes, Falcon Ridge, Lakes of Friendswood, developed by Mitch Mitchell, Friendswood resident. Regency Estates, Glen Shanna, developed by Dr. Jones, Friendswood residents. Dominion, Sterling Creek, 1 and 2, developed by H&H Development, Friendswood people. Sterling Wood, developed by Ralph Lowe. Polly Ranch by Billy McIndish, Friendswood people. Forest of Friendswood, Dan Rucker. Part of the Lakes of Friendswood, Tracy Goza. There are other subdivisions that I don't know who the developers were, but I'm gonna name them: Wilderness Trails, Laura Field, Friendswood Oaks, Century Oaks, all 90-foot lots. And the recent, as far as I'm concerned, the recent past. I was at West Ranch today. On the east side of West Ranch Boulevard, though they could build 60-foot lots, their lots, the minimums now are 65s and 80s. They know that that is the Friendswood market. And I'm going to ask Mr. Patterson, where did you first hear about this land?
Actually, driving through, we wanted to be in this area, and Harvey and I drove through Pearland, League City, Friendswood, obviously, and we saw it through our windshield.
Were you aware that our ordinances call for 90-foot lots?
We were made aware of that early in the process, and we were also made aware of the opportunity for a PUD application.
Who told you you had a good chance of getting 55-foot lots in Friendswood?
Nobody.
You just came up with that. Do you have a project you're fixed to start up in Magnolia?
No.
Well, yeah, I'll check the internet. It says otherwise.
Yeah.
And we treat local developers one way. We treat strangers coming down the road different. Friendswood Development rode into town, and they got a management district. They got a PUD. They got all kind of 60-foot lots. Now, they did have to build, I know one thing they had to do was loop a water main from Bay Area Boulevard across Clear Creek into their subdivision.
We've been made aware that we need to do the same thing.
Yeah, but we have to pay the difference if you upsize it. You get a free lift station. Other, lift stations are about $500,000. You're gonna use a city lift station, I just think that this development doesn't have a lot. It may be great for Sun Meadow. I'm just not sure it's great for the city of Friendswood. And I hear your numbers thrown around, 200 or 300 if you go 90-foot lot. I don't believe it. I don't believe it. I believe it's smoke and mirrors. And I just think that you can do a quality development and respect the values that have made this city what it is. You're coming in and gonna make a pile of money off of what it's taken 50 years for this city to build and get respect. That's all I gotta say about it.
Anybody else? Councilmember Enochs?
We got to remember this is a process. And one of the things that's impressed me with Park Patterson and your team is you guys have taken copious notes anytime we've ever had a discussion about this project. I know you guys have been working on this for years. And every time you've come before us, you come before P&Z, it's evident you're listening, you're making tweaks, you're making adjustments. And like I said last council meeting when this came up, that was the first step of many steps. And I appreciate you continuing to listen, appreciate you continuing to work with us. one of the things I struggle with is when you look at 90 by 130 lots, generally we're looking at brand new developments. This is unique in that we're trying to shoehorn into an existing development, and that gets to be more complicated. To me, what we ought to be looking at, and I think you're getting closer there, Mr. Patterson, is it needs to be representative of what's already there currently today. When you look at the average lot size versus the median lot size versus the mode lot size, it's right around 75-foot lots. Now there is a little bit on the smaller lots with some townhomes there on the front side. So to me, you've made steps in the right direction. You're on the right path. And I applaud you for continuing to work, continuing to tweak, 'cause I'm sure you guys are exhausted with tweaking this and looking at it. I know the drainage districts, what I've seen, I think you guys have done everything right, and you got the right minds on getting this drainage right, but I know that still has to go through the drainage district. But everything I've seen in all the plans you guys put forth, you've taken into consideration not only the impact of Sun Meadow, you're taking into consideration the impact of Windsor Estates. You guys are looking at the micro and the macro picture to ensure that all parties involved with this development are impacted in a positive manner. I'm still a little concerned on the roadways. I haven't seen any analysis of the impact of traffic, and my fear is that we're going to see a lot of pressure on the south side there coming out on 528. You're going to see it getting backed up at peak traffic times, and if people start to sit through 2 or 3 rotations of lights, they're going to start taking risky behavior to make that light, so they don't have to sit through another rotation. The second part of the traffic thing that concerns me is just the 2 bridges getting out. In the event that we have some sort of flood, those folks could be locked in there. And I know you say there's a connection to an oil field road, but that makes me nervous. They were relying on a road that's not well maintained and it's not controlled by us or our county. But again, thank you for all the hard work you're doing. We'll continue to move in the right direction, and I look forward to future discussions on this.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Councilmember Scott.
Just real quickly, if you look at the plan, the houses, the development that's being put in the shoehorned into the existing subdivision are the ones where you have 90-foot lots. The open space where the old country club and all that was is where you're actually taking advantage and putting the 55 and 60-foot lots. So from my perspective, it would be counter to what Councilman Enoch said, is that you can put 90-foot lots in existing property or an existing subdivision because you've proven it with your development plan here. I don't understand why you can't put 90-foot lots where there is no development and all the open space. So this council, for the 5+ years that I've been on it, has been very consistent, and planning and zoning should know that we've demanded that we stick to our ordinance and require 90-foot lots. I could understand if there was minor deviations in that. Coming to us with the last plan didn't have 10% of them at 90-foot lots, and this plan has less than 20% or 25% of them at 90-foot lots. I just think that, the reason for the 90-foot lot in the city of Friendswood is exactly what was stated earlier. It's the density and the appearance. That's why the people moved to Friendswood. That's why the property values in Friendswood are significantly higher than our neighbors. That's something that we should be proud of, not something that we should run from. You don't deteriorate the value of the homeowner. For those of us that live here and invest in this community, our single largest investment for 95% is the home that they actually purchase. Working in corporate America, I had many, many, many employees or friends that moved to the area and did move to Friendswood. And 5 years later, when they got transferred, they were upside down on their house, living in Clear Lake, living in League City, living wherever. That doesn't happen here. And it doesn't happen here for a reason. And it doesn't happen here in Sun Meadows, and it doesn't happen here in Whitehall, and it doesn't happen here in Analia. Every single development that was put in this community has appreciated in value significantly over time. And there's a reason for that. And the reason is the vision that was given to this community many, many years before I got on this council. And all I've tried to do for the 5+ years I've been here is to continue that vision. To continue to protect the investor who decides to come and sink his roots in this community and raise his children in this community and keep his home in this community, because it is the most appreciable value or asset that he has to his name or her name. And I don't think that at this point we should jeopardize or sacrifice that. I do understand the consternation from the guys in Sun Meadows with drainage issues and with the golf course. I understand that. When I lived here, the golf course was the nicest amenity in the area. So I understand that. I've seen its deterioration over time, and I have concerns with that just as much as everyone else does. But every home in this community appreciates, because of the values that councils and planning and zoning in the past and developers in the past have put on lot sizes and home values, and because of our school district. So I will not support a development where the lot sizes are smaller than our ordinance requires, particularly if over 75% of those lot sizes in that development don't meet that minimum standard. So that's my 2 cents. But I do appreciate your efforts. I appreciate your time. I'm not here to beat anybody up. I'm just here to speak about why I would be against it. And that's why I would be against it, because it is a tremendous value for the people who move here. And for the people who move here, it is their biggest asset for 95% of them. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Park.
Thank you, Mayor, City Council.
E, school district funding. Trish. You said 10 minutes, right?
10 minutes? I can't say hello in 10 minutes. 10 minutes, I'll go a
Okay.
little fast. I have some handouts, and I want to introduce Tony Hopkins, who is one of our board members. And Connie Morganroth, the CFO. And I think that, or the deputy superintendent, is probably looking for a parking spot. I thank you for letting me speak to you tonight. And when I start, and this cannot count in the 10 minutes, okay? I just want to set the record straight. I understand that someone had made a comment earlier about my position on that development. And thank you, Mr. Rocky, for acknowledging that you had asked me. Honestly, Steve, you were not the only elected official that asked me to meet with those developers, which I did, and gave the city feedback, which I was asked to do. And this was not the first time I've been asked to do that, which I think is a very smart thing for the city to do, to see if we had capacity for those students. And when we looked at the kind of development, we know how many students we could expect from it, and that's the feedback that I gave you, period. And that was last March or April, period. So you've heard it from the horse's mouth. I want to get that record on the record. So in 2014-15 school year, we had a survey of parents asking them what they valued the most about our district to help us with our strategic planning. We were so fortunate in that over 60%, we had over 2,000 respondents from that survey. They had a list of 18 things that they could choose, and there were 3 of them that were very, very close, that were the most important. Safety and security was number 1, college readiness was number 2, and hiring and maintaining quality staff was a close 3. Those 3 were very close together, and then I think the first 5 were rather close, and then the rest dropped off significantly. That school year, we began to look at our compensation plans, and we did a study of surrounding districts and discovered that we were significantly lower than some of our surrounding districts and had begun to lose some quality staff, especially younger ones, to a district where they could pay their bills better with more money. So our board spent quite a few months and our staff spent quite a few months, and we redesigned our compensation plan to be more similar to that of Clear Creek. We are still not the highest, as you can see on this. Did I hand this one to you yet? Did I hand this one to you? You have it? It says tax ratification election on the top? That's the one? Okay. So as you can see, I looked at Alvin, Clear Creek, Pearland, and Friendswood, and we are still the 4th of those 4 districts in teacher compensation.
but we are within the ballpark. We are not $6,000 and $7,000 behind. We're $1,500 to $2,000 in different, $2,500 at the most at different areas. So we raised the teacher salary significantly last year, and then monitored what everybody was doing again this year to try to stay at least within the ballpark. And so what our board did this year, they called for, they adopted a tax rate that will be a total tax rate of 2 cents higher than the current tax rate. And they did this in order to continue and to support those salary increases. Our budget, 85% of our budget is salaries. So they also, this last spring, refinanced our bonds and called them in early, and after, even with a little bit of negative arbitrage, saved $16.7 million. And because of that, they were able to drop the INS, or the debt service tax rate, by 7 cents. The law requires that if a school board adopts an M&O tax rate above $1.04, that it have to go out to the community for a vote. So they are dropping the INS tax rate by 7. They have done that already. And they have adopted a tax rate that is 9 cents higher on the M&O side. And if you'll just bear with me for a minute about school funding, it works differently than cities. Values have gone up in the last 2 years, especially the second year of a 2-year increase in values. When those go up, I know you collect more money from property taxes. So does the district. But what happens in the state formula is as we collect more money locally, we lose money from the state. So there are scenarios, depending on the number of students, new students who are enrolling, their attendance, their type of program. It's a rather involved formula. We could increase money. We could stay the same in revenue. We could actually have less revenue from one year to the next. So our district's enrollment has been only growing by about 0.5%, sometimes 1%, for the last few years. So you'll say, well, property values are going up everywhere. Is everyone having this problem? No, because we are surrounded by fast growth districts. So Clear Creek, Alvin, Pearland, Dickinson, all those places, their values are going up also. But the state reduction in funding is being offset by the growth in enrollment, which is what we're not getting. They also have higher tax rates than we do. So that's one of the drivers of school funding as well. So on that chart, you also see the 10 school districts, all of Galveston County plus Pearland and Alvin. And you see that we are number 8 at $1.36.7. And with the 2-penny increase, we would be $1.38.7. You can see that the election has been called for September 10th. And I've also handed you a piece of paper right here that shows the 50 school districts, and these are audited numbers through PEAMS and by an independent audit, not one that we commissioned, but one that does this for the state and others. Out of the 50 school districts in Region 4, we receive the lowest overall per pupil revenue of all 50 districts. So you can see the top one is, can you read that? What is it? What is it, though?
40.
It is 40,889, and you can see Friendswood is 9,388, and that is all funds. So you can also see at the top of the page what I supplied for you is information that shows you the operating, and this is for the 14-15 school year. And if we had the same amount per pupil that these other districts get, you can see highlighted how much more revenue we would have in our budget. So if we got the same amount per pupil as Pearland, it would be over $1 million. If we got the same amount per pupil as Galveston, it would be $4.7 million. And 3.9 if we got the same as Dickinson, 1.1 if the same as Clear Creek. And this is general funds, so this does not include federal funds. This is just state and local funds. On the back, I've put a history of our tax rate. When I moved here in 1983, our tax rate was $1.78. I think it was the highest in Galveston County because I remember shopping for homes and learning that. You can see from 1983 to current at $1.36.7, the different amounts as it's gone up and down. And this proposed, has been adopted by our board, and it's pending the tax ratification election. It will be $1.38.7. So the main thing to remember is that the driver of funding is it is based on the state's formula. This is I just finished my 14th year as the superintendent. We've had 3 different formulas from the state on funding. So part of it is your values, and then the state reduces. That's been, I think, the same the whole 14 years I've been a superintendent. As the locals pay more, the state pays less. It accrues as a savings to the state. And the only way that you really get permanent increases is through increased student enrollment or better attendance or different kinds of kids, depending on the formula. It's a very complicated formula. Or any tweaking that they do throughout the year, which they do. So, anything? I think I got that in pretty fast for such a topic. But anything that you want to say that I forgot? Any questions? Yes, sir.
Trish, I read on the internet.
On the internet?
On the internet.
Oh, it must be fact then.
Well, that you had said in the last year we lost $500,000 in state funding because of increased values?
No, I wrote that in a letter to you. I told you that we didn't lose it, that we were projecting, back in March, we were projecting for our total revenue, state general fund revenue, to be $500,000 less. That's in the letter that I sent to City Council. And that was based on the high values. Now, you're going to get into the funding formula, okay, so I'm going to try to keep it simple. The big increase that we had last year in property values was unprecedented. We have not been experiencing that kind of jump. The state, as I was explaining to P&Z and CEDC this week, the state is a year behind in their formulas to us. So as those increases jumped that year, we got additional money locally, but the state was still operating on the lower number from the year before. Then the state agrees. They wait until January 31st, and they come out with our number. And they said, we agree with GCAD's number. So they upped our values, which means then they lower our funding. At the time when Ms. Morgan-Roth was projecting our budget, which was when I wrote that letter, we're still projecting. We did not have any preliminary values yet. I think you projected a 4%, which was more historically what we've had. At that rate, we would have had $500,000 less in state funding. And how much did you increase students by? 0.5%, I think is what it was. 0.5%. So if we had a 0.5% growth in students and we had a 4% increase in values, then we were projecting $500,000 less in revenue. Well, what's happened on preliminary values is, I guess Roger's already reported on that, there's been another big increase this year. So now we have that next year to go through. So they have dropped it, but we recouped it locally, and then next year we will lose that money. And there's no telling. I don't know how many students we'll get or what the values will be again.
Is there any, I'm trying to figure out the relationship between
state and local
well,
funding?
when you collect more in taxes, is there a balance? So, okay, so you collect $2 million more in taxes. Is there some number where you know how much the state is going to take away?
Yes, there's a formula. It's on the computer. It's
Is
very
it?
complicated. Larry Taylor says there's one person in the state that understands it, but we have his number and his name.
Well, it's not
so
me.
we're good. And so there are so many different variables, Jim. I'm not trying to make light of it.
No, I'm just trying to get a grasp on.
It's
if
not
we
dollar
increase
for dollar.
values and the
It's-
state, if we get you by increased values another $1 million, does the state take away 500,000? They take away $1 million? I mean, is there any way of knowing how much they're going to take?
We only know when we look at some of the other data that we plug into the formula, but we know for sure that it will be a decrease because local value appraisals, growth in local value, accrue to the state. The savings accrues to the state. So we are now considered a wealthy district because our appraisals are up here and our student growth is here. And so when you divide that number, we're now considered a wealthy district. So everything over over $1.04, between $1.06, We will get extra money, which is tied to Austin ISD's well. I mean, that's how complicated this gets. And then after $1.06, we start sending money back to the state.
Well, I listened to your presentation.
Robin Hood.
To P&Z.
Mhm.
We have the same problem with the county, but we won't go there.
It's complicated, there's no way to
But
run it.
it appears to me that what's good for the city may have a negative impact on the school.
No. You know what I think, Jim, because I think I also heard that I was saying that I didn't want economic development, which I've never said. So what I'm saying is, you know, when I moved here and the tax rate was $1.78, I think we were 96% residential. So the tax burden was all on the residences. So I think it's prudent and good policy to spread the tax rate out. I think you have a policy that says 80-20.
Right.
Isn't that right? Okay, I think that's a reasonable policy. It still keeps mostly residential. What's happening in our community, and I have data that goes back to the 1990s about every cohort, every class that enters kindergarten, and our kindergarten class is always our lowest class. Usually, that means that you're a dying community. But that's not what it means since 1990s. What happens is older families move into Friendswood, and you can speculate all the different reasons, but that class, that cohort, gets bigger and bigger and bigger as it goes through the system until about 10th grade. And that's been true, with maybe one exception, since 1996. So I think it's 96, 94 or 6, since I have the chart. So no, I think it's a good balance. I think you need balance. But it is true. So somebody asked me the other day, so if a Walmart came in and a Lowe's came in and we didn't have any more kids, we'd lose more state funding. It's true. We would lose more state funding and more of the burden would be on the local taxpayers. It's true.
Okay, well, I just want you to know I appreciate what y'all do, and I don't envy your problems.
You know, I do need to say one more thing. We are the lowest spending, the lowest revenue, not the lowest spending, I don't have those figures, but the lowest revenue in those 50 districts, but we are the highest performing. And really throughout the state. And I can't, you know, I'm the superintendent, I have to say that. But thank you. And I had lunch today with Larry Taylor as we were talking about some legislative issues coming up, and he said, Tricia, that's why y'all are always, you know, kind of used as you know, an example of trying to figure out the funding. So,
Thank you very much.
Councilmember Gustafson.
All right, this is by no means going to be a critique of what you
did
guys are doing.
I leave a number 3 off again?
No.
No, okay.
No, you didn't lose me on any of that. I just want to point out a couple of things.
Okay.
We're considered to be a wealthy district. I guess this kind of wealthiest, least wealthiest, or?
Well, yeah, I guess.
Well, I
what
guess
you're
I'm
saying.
trying to, you know, LaPorte's on here at $40,000 a student.
They're a wealthy district.
Yeah.
There are several considered wealthy districts
Well,
on that.
Barbers Hill,
They're a wealthy district.
they've got to be.
They are
Enterprises all
both-
over the place out
They
there.
are both paying back money to the state. Galveston is paying back money to the state. Texas City's paying back money to the state.
All right, and Deer Park is
Deer
another
Park
one.
is paying back money to the state.
Goose Creek, I
Goose
guess
Creek
that
is
covers
paying back,
Baytown.
yes.
Texas City, they
Texas
gotta
City.
be.
Yes.
All right, so they're just soaking it to their industrial clients so hard that that's how they're able to come up with these giant numbers. And since we're funded primarily from business, or from residential, the residential tax base, we're just not able to do that.
And they do
And
recapture.
this is what happens when you don't
Yeah.
have any.
They do get recaptured, but yeah, I don't know the other tax rates of the other communities, but I know Texas City's tax rate is higher than ours now. They just had one. Are they higher on that sheet?
I think I have it right
I think
here.
they are, yeah, and they yeah.
Yeah, they're at
So-
1.42, almost 1.43.
Some of those may have more revenue because they are wealthier. They have more, like with the refineries, but they
Right.
also may have a higher tax rate, so they're getting them more than they're paying the state, but they're
Yeah,
still,
but Texas City, I mean,
they're still
they're,
wealthier.
they're spending, run over here real quick, almost $20,000 a student. They're paying twice what we are, and their tax rate's nowhere near twice what ours is, so.
No, well, they can't be, because we're capped. We're capped by law, so they can't really I think they're close to the cap.
Anyway, I think it's commendable that you've done the job you have with the handcuffs you have on you. It's quite remarkable that you were receiving the least amount of money per student, yet you're tops in performance.
We have good clientele. We have great
Yeah.
kids,
Well, you
great
do have, I think you
families,
have good clay to work with. you know.
and we have great people. We have great people. And we're trying to keep them.
Yeah, I would just say that this goes to prove that it's not about money. That you can be the lowest on this list in the best school. Nobody's fighting to get into Alvin ISD. And that if you look at the majority of the schools that have super high funding per pupil, it's all districts that have huge commercial or industrial developments within their community. So again, I think it's a good reflection of the citizens in our community who are truly involved in their children's education and seeing that their children succeed in school. I think it's a good reflection of yourself and the school district and what you guys are capable of doing to provide for our children who grow up here. And it's also a reflection that money doesn't get you educated.
That is true. There's a lot of truth to that, but you have to have some money.
And you do.
so if we.
And you do. My wife's a teacher and been a
That's
teacher
right.
for years and years, so
And
I
if
know.
you, what I neglected to say is that when the board looked at giving the raises, they were looking at a $2 million deficit. And so that's when they voted to adopt a higher tax rate to try to meet that.
Thanks.
You're welcome.
Councilmember Enoch?
Ms. Hanks, thank you for all the work you do and for what the board does. Appreciate you coming and speaking to us today. I want to ask this question because I think I know the answer, but I think it'd be good for everybody to hear that. You probably better than anybody knows what a wonderful volunteer base we have at the school district. And with that comes a lot of fundraising with Klein Fest and the FISD Foundation. However, the tax rate you guys are choosing to increase is going to be focused more towards teacher salaries, whereas a lot of that fundraising can't be utilized for that. That's more for classroom purchases, computers, and things of that nature, correct?
That's correct.
Thank you.
Councilmember Rocky?
You know, we faced the same thing. What was it, 2 years ago? We did the study, and we had to do an aggressive ramping up of salaries, particularly with newer employees and police officers and all that. So we faced the same thing, losing them to the surrounding areas and all that. It hurts.
Thank you all for being here.
You're welcome.
Thank you for the great job.
We are always available if you have any questions.
We're going to move on to item 6, closed executive session. In the executive conference room adjacent to council chambers, City Hall. A, communication from the public regarding executive session topics. Is there any? Council may convene in the executive session in accordance.
Somebody wants to speak about this.
Where?
I think it's the dog.
Where's he at?
Well, it looks like it's trying to get, it can't get.
No? Okay. Council may convene in the executive session in accordance with Texas Local Government Code, Texas Government Code pursuant to Section 551.071, consultation with attorney regarding pending claims against Olson and Olson LLP arising from settlement of legal action, Section 551.071, consultation with attorney regarding pending litigation with Robert J. Bertrand and the City of Friendswood, Section 551.072. Thank you. Oh, deliberation regarding real property, parkland, development, legal advice only regarding the potential development of real property within the City of Friendswood. Discussion and possible action, item 8, regarding consultation with city attorney regarding pending claims against Olson and Olson LLP arising from settlement of legal action. 9, discussion and possible action regarding ratification of an agreement with the Lewis Brisbois Law Firm to serve as special counsel for election contest.
Motion to approve.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? All those opposed? Show it to be unanimous. Okay. Item 10, special recognition and acknowledgements. A, oath of office administered to reappointed municipal court associate judge Richard P. Flake. the water's fine. Mhm. Some would say. Thank you, Judge Fleck. There you go. Thank you. Congratulations. Item 11, joint public hearing to receive comments from the public, both oral or written, regarding the zone classification change request for 3.665 acre tract of land, Lot 1, Block 1, Cowards Creek Office Park. Property located at 1100, 1102, 1104, 1106, 1110 South Friendswood Drive, Friendswood, Galveston County, Texas, to change from plan unit development, specific use permit, ordinance 2015-30 to downtown district. And I'll turn it over to Chairman David O'Farrell.
This time, Mayor, we'd like to call our meeting to order and receive comments from the public, both oral and written, regarding the zone classification of the buildings that you've mentioned from 1100 to 1110 South Friendswood Drive. We might start, I guess, with Aubrey giving us a presentation overview.
Yes, sir. So this property is located down here by the park. It consists of the buildings with Cowards Creek Office Park, where the Chamber of Commerce and other buildings are. The current owner bought the property in 2015. He came in, he's had some proposed tenants. He actually built the last building that was approved as part of that original site plan, so that newest building is there. He's had tenants that were not permitted uses under that current SUP, and rather than coming back to y'all every time there's a tenant that's not allowed in that SUP, he's opting to go just for downtown zoning, so it has predetermined uses that are permitted by right in that zoning district. He will not be required at this time to put in the sidewalks, benches, and lights for the downtown district. It would be an existing non-conforming site, but eventually, if he wanted to put those in, that would definitely be encouraged. And like I said, the uses are the primary reason for changing to this, to the downtown district.
Mayor, basically, and council, this basically creates additional latitude for him to utilize his property and bring businesses into that corridor. So at this point, would anyone like to speak in favor of this proposed change? Anyone in favor? Seeing none, anyone would like to speak in opposition? Seeing neither, we then will adjourn with your permission.
Thank you very much.
Thanks.
We'll move on to item 12, communication from the public. To comply with the provisions of the Open Meetings Act, the City Council may not deliberate on items discussed under this agenda item. The council may, after this item, or refer this item to the city manager or direct this item to be placed on the next regular council agenda. PowerPoint presentations are not conducted during the citizens' comment period. We've got Michael Wood.
How y'all doing? In regards to item 14 on the agenda and Jeff Newfer's article about the commercial website SafeWise using the Uniform Crime Report to report Friendswood as one of the safest cities in Texas. Had Mr. Newfer performed his due diligence, he would have determined that the UCR report does not rate, rank, or compare jurisdictions, and specifically warns against using the report in this manner. In this article, Chief Wieners states, "Where the city placed is a direct result of teamwork within the police department." This statement is not factual. The UCR report specifically states that the report is demographics driven and does not measure police department effectiveness or efficiency. Every Texas city in the UCR report that is the same size and has the same demographics as Friendswood has a similar crime index number, crimes per thousand residents. Of these comparable cities, Friendswood has the largest police department, and their police budget averages about 40% higher than the other cities. Yet our crime index number does not differ. the fact that since the first of the year, the city has reported the findings of 3 different websites using the same UCR report with 3 different rankings for Friendswood should be a red flag as to their worth. The last sentence in the warning issued by the FBI regarding the usage of the UCR report states, "The FBI cautions, in fact, strongly discourages data users against using rankings to evaluate locales or the effectiveness of their law enforcement agencies." Basically, SafeWise misuses the UCR report in an effort to sell burglar alarms. Thank you.
David Allen?
David Allen, 214 Inwood, Friendswood. I would just like to thank everyone that has participated in the recital of the Declaration of Independence that Patrick McGinnis used to say here every 4th of July, around the 4th of July meeting. And I kind of feel like in The Wizard of Oz, you know, when Dorothy wakes up back in the farmhouse, I guess she had been hit on the head by a flying object in a tornado, and the whole thing with The Wizard of Oz was a dream, you know, and she looks up, "I saw you there," and you there, because I think, you know, Patrick was part of it, Mo was part of it, I think even the lawyer was part of it, right? So, I mean, it was all there, and Roger and everybody, excuse me, Arnold, okay, well, anyway, and Melinda was here, but Melinda's not here, but, you know, it was really beautifully done. The annoying thing about it, it was very beautiful actually, but the annoying thing about it was, in the grievances that were listed, of course, you start seeing things that are happening today and shouldn't be happening if people in positions of power are obeying the Constitution. You know, sending swarms of officers here to eat out our substance. I was talking with a former ranch owner, and the IRS visits you and say, you know, it's real hard. Now they're allowing foreign beef unlabeled to come in. It's considered American beef if it's slaughtered in America. So whereas it used to be the price of the beef would go down, you'd thin your herd, okay, the price of beef goes up, you can raise it at a profit again. Now they just keep importing more from Australia, more from Brazil, more from Mexico, and the price never goes up. You know, forcing ranchers out of business. And then the IRS says, but if you don't show a profit, we can't tax you as agricultural. Now it's just personal pleasure, and we jack up the taxes 10 times. You know, swarms of officers to eat out our substance. Things like, you know, ranchers being chased off their land in Nevada and Oregon. BLM is armed, and they come and they just seize land along the Red River. They say, well, you know, this used to be in Texas, and now it's in Oklahoma, so we're taking it. Or this used to be in Oklahoma, and now it's Texas, we're taking it. What? So we really have a lot of the same stuff that was mentioned in the Declaration, but we have a war against the police. Thank you. We've seen that up in Dallas, you know, these groups. We have to remain calm. I know people always talk about Texas seceding. We have to stay a member of the union, but make sure that those people above us obey the document they swore an oath to take their paycheck. And remain calm, race-wise, support our police. They have an incredibly difficult job. And you know, we know the rest of the story. They're ours, and we need to support them. So thank you very much, and it was beautiful. Anyone that hasn't watched it, I think there's probably around 1,000 views on it. There could be even more. Just go to the Friendswood site for 4th of July and click. It's beautifully done. I mean, they have little, you know, 10-year-old kids at the pool reciting part of it as well. Everybody was in it. It was great.
Thank you, David. Millie Curver?
My name is Millie Kerner. I have written a letter that I wrote to the Friendswood Journal editor, and I'd like to read that to you right now. What a gigantic and foolish waste of taxpayer funds. Just because a city can get state money doesn't mean they have to. The re-landscaping of the medians of FM 518 through the old downtown part of Friendswood is a prime example. The medians have been beautiful for 30 to 35 years. I do not have the exact date of when those trees were planted. School children in Friendswood donated nickels and dimes. Businesses donated money to buy the crepe myrtles. Mr. Hubert Bales, who everybody in Friendswood loved dearly, ordered the crepe myrtles. He cared for them and watered them until the city provided water to each of the medians before they were permitted to be planted. The high school drafting class drew up the plans. The whole community was involved in this. It was a great community effort, and we were all very proud. The medians were planned to be all white crepe myrtles in one, all red in another, all lavender in one, and all pink in another. Well, over the next year, when they started to bloom, oops, there's a purple one in with the white. We just laughed and thought how great that is. They're all beautiful. And we went along our business. Mostly they were all the right color, but we enjoyed the difference. Now, all that beauty has been destroyed by people that don't even care to find out the history. And they destroyed the people that didn't even care to find out the history. The people who think they can dig up large plants like that in mid-July are sadly mistaken. When the temperature is 100 degrees like this, nothing's going to live. You're going to have a water standing on it all the time, pouring on it all the time. What a colossal waste of everyone's money and years of growth for the medians. Is this what they call crepe murder? An earlier community appearance board was in charge of planning and planting the original crepe myrtles, and I was chairman of that committee. By the way, I've been told that the crepe myrtles that are being ripped out now are going to be replaced with, wait for it, crepe myrtles. These will, I trust, be the appropriate colors and in the right place to suit all the smart people in town that love spending others' tax money. I would like to add something else too. I have also seen what is in the middle of those medians. It is an old roadbed from 518 that is pavement with layers and layers of gravel and cement and whatever in the middle of them. There is only about 1 foot worth of dirt on the sides of the median. In the middle, there is a 1 foot or 1.5 foot distance in the very middle that had a place for any roots to go down. I'm sure those crepe myrtles had a hard time finding a place to live, but they were cared for all these years. Now, the people that come along, if they want to put some crepe myrtles on the sides, they're going to have to blast through a little bit of old pavement to get those things to grow.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Move on to item 13, communication from committees and special reports. Annual report from Community Economic Development Committee Chairman Pauline Moore.
It's a handout that is going around real quickly. But first of all, thank you, Mayor and Council, for having me tonight to go over our annual report of the CEDC. Just to start with, we have 9 members. I think I saw Brett. Is he the only one? Well, he's one of our committee members, but there are 9 total of us, so 7 others that aren't here. And of course, Carl is our liaison, and we have 6 others. Recent appointments, of course, that y'all may, I believe, just appointed at your last meeting, and they both attended our meeting this month. Jennifer Whitley and Lori Foreman. And Gary Kay was appointed earlier, I guess about August of last year. So I guess he's almost an old timer now, been here about a year. So I appreciate all of them serving on the committee with me. It's a good board. And Carl coming to our meetings, and our liaisons are also a lot of help. So to get started, now that everyone has it, I guess the CEDC's mission statement is that the CEDC will actively recruit and retain quality businesses to diversify Friendswood's tax base. One of the things that is in your handout, and it's at the last of the handout, I think it's the last 2 pages, but something we included this year was the Economic Incentive Program success stories. And if you turn to the second page, some of these have been around a couple of years, but there's 3 within 2015. So these are just recent ones. The Masa Sushi, that of course is now open, as well as the Town Square Center and Lifestyle Financial Advisors. So those are 3 recent success stories, and you can see a little bit of information about them as far as their building value, how many jobs they've created, the incentive that they receive, but what kind of jobs and excellent businesses that are in our community. So I just wanted to start with the success stories there. We've had a busy year, as we seem to always have. We met 14 meetings in 2015, and we've had 6 so far this year. We have, like I said, been pretty busy. We have now established a process, along with the city staff, to provide the CED's position regarding downzoning of properties that are requesting to go from commercial to non-commercial use. The information is now provided through the city's rezoning project. We've also took a tour last October of the city, and that's something that Karen has done ever so often with us, and gone around to all of the properties, downtown, FM 528, 2351, Beamer Road, all around. And what we discuss when we're going around are the past, current, potential development plans as far, and also any opportunities and challenges that we have, which, you know, we've talked about some of those in the past, down 528 and the infrastructure, Beamer Road. So nothing new, but it's good to go out and actually see those properties. We also in October had the 13th annual broker event, Developer Day. I know that the mayor kicked that off, welcomed everyone. And then Karen gave an update on business opportunities in Friendswood. And Bix Rathburn also spoke to the group about development plans in Galveston County. Had about 50 attendees there, and I think it was about 15 that stayed around and played golf and networked. And so we're actually in the process now of planning the event this year, which will be the 14th annual, of course. It's scheduled for October 27th, so any of your golfers, put that down. And if you're not a golfer, please plan to come to that event. We'd love to have you there. So that's coming up in October. In December, we had the staff review, gave us an overview on city staff on several things, such as the downtown district, pertaining to zoning, eligibility requirements in order for a business to qualify for the city's municipal grant program, among other items. We also reviewed and discussed the sales tax and tax increment reinvestment zones as 2 types of funding mechanisms that would help as far as economic development is concerned, to help pay for public infrastructure and downtown improvements. In January, the CEDC recommended against any new ordinance specific to large retail establishments. That's something that the Planning and Zoning Commission is still working on. Of course, our belief is that such an ordinance sends an anti-business message to all businesses considering development in the city, has a negative impact on revenue growth, and it also is contrary to the economic development policy adopted by the City Council in early 2015, as well as contrary to the FM 528 strategy. But again, that's still being worked on and discussed in planning and zoning. We also made a recommendation in support of the City Council, in support to the City Council of the additional 1/8 cent sales tax. And of course, that was ultimately approved in May, the May election. In February, the CEDC unanimously concurred with the proposed changes by the Planning and Zoning Commission pertaining to the city's permitted use table. And as they relate to the city's downtown district and the future vision of downtown, more specifically prohibiting several NAICS uses within the city's downtown district zoning. I know there was a lot of discussion about that. Over the course of several months, we've also discussed how we can share the data that we're collecting and what's the best way to share that with the city council. Well, Karen has put together a new development report, which I believe y'all are getting monthly, as well as the CEDC gets that. So that's one thing we're doing currently. There's also a couple of pages, and I'm not going to go over any of this because a lot of it was just gone over in the report, but it is a pretty good little summary of the activities and actions that have been taken since the economic development policy was adopted by the City Council in 2015. It kind of lists everything from then to currently. What's happened has kind of a date associated with it. So y'all can look at that, a lot of the things we talked about already. Other than that, our role as volunteers is to be an economic development advisory committee to the City Council. We appreciate your support, and thank you again for the opportunity.
Thank you, Pauline.
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, can I ask a question? Pauline, I don't know if this is for you or Carl, if it's for you as the liaison, but how's our partnership with BAHEP been in the past, since we renewed the contract?
That might be a Karen question more than either one of us, I guess. I don't really have any comment. Karen, do you have anything that you want to add? Or?
I'm actually council liaison to BAHAP, so
Okay.
we'll be having an interesting discussion, I'm sure, later this year.
It's an interesting answer.
Thank you for your
Any other
volunteerism
questions?
and continue to serve as chair for this
Oh,
economic
you're
development group.
welcome. Thank you for
Pauline.
giving me the opportunity. Thank you.
See you later. Roger, city manager's report.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Beginning this Friday, we will have our City of Friendswood and Friendswood Rotary Club Movies in the Park out at the Evelyn B. Newman Amphitheater at Centennial Park. And there are some great movies coming up for the kids and the family in general. Alvin and the Chipmunks, Disney, a couple of Disney movies, Inside Out and Zootopia, which my grandkids happen to love. Home, Courageous, Ambrose sponsors Dance Expressions, Keep Friendswood Beautiful, Hometown Bank of Friendswood, Night Light, Pediatric Urgent Care, Operation Redemption, and Texas Emergency Care Center. Make these available to all of our citizens at no charge, so we encourage folks to come out beginning this Friday evening. The city just celebrated its 121st 4th of July celebration, and neither I nor anyone on council were here for the first. I'll get that out there in front of some that may.
Really? You got proof?
We have proof.
I saw him in a picture.
The day did kick off with a great parade, and if you've not seen the video, I would encourage you all to look it up. It is very entertaining. The daytime festivities at Stevenson Park were well attended and enjoyed by many, many folks. It was very hot, but we were blessed with a great breeze throughout the day and the evening, so that definitely made it more enjoyable. At the evening program, I'm impressed every year with the different volunteer soloists who sing the patriotic music. They did a great job again this year. We had a spectacular air delivery of the United States, the Texas, and the City of Friendswood flags. The timing of that is just incredible. Remax skydiving team are the ones that provide that. And we even had not one but two flyovers. So by the Lone Star Squadron. So I think those of us who missed it the first time around got to see it on the second pass, so we appreciated that. What would have probably been the most entertaining part was the threat of a city council karaoke event, but that didn't happen.
What's he saying?
What was the song y'all were going to sing?
Sounds of Silence.
And you did a great job of it. In all candor, it was a great day, but we were disappointed in what for some is the most important part of the evening, and that's the fireworks show. Those of you who attended could tell the show was shorter than normal, and we lost the music before the end of the show. And we'll be meeting with the fireworks vendor this week to determine exactly what occurred and discuss our future association. So we apologize for that. But on the other hand, what I want to do is thank those volunteers and the staff that have worked, that are getting ready to begin work on next year's 4th of July. For most, the 4th of July is a day to relax and spend time with friends and family. For these folks, they spend months throughout the year planning, and I know they were very disappointed that at the end of that day that occurred, and it's just one of those things that happened. We'll do everything in our power that we can to make sure it doesn't happen again. So again, let me say thank you to all of the 4th of July volunteers and the city staff, many city staff that work a long, long, hard day. I had the opportunity to visit with some Parks and Public Works employees as we were standing out there, and I made the comment, well, you've almost survived another one, and they said, oh, we've got all the barricades and everything to pick up after this is over. So their night ends much later than the rest of us, so I thank them very much. Friendswood was named one of the safest cities in Texas by the SafeWise report, and I'm very proud to report that. This year, Friendswood ranked number 10, up from 14 last year, and I want to thank the excellent work of our police department and the cooperation and the vigilance of our residents. And if you have any questions about that report and would like our chief of police to respond to them, I'm sure he'd be happy to do so. If you don't, I will simply say thank you to them, and I'm proud to report that. Likewise, we were named one of Niche's best suburbs to live. I will keep reporting these to you as long as we keep receiving the accolades. So you will tell me when to stop, and I'll try to resist the urge to continue. Friendswood was ranked number 11 in the Houston metropolitan area. Was also ranked number 25 in the state. It's one of the best suburbs to live. We are proud that the city has received this recognition, and we know it's a result of the hard work, again, of many, many volunteers and our city staff, our elected officials. It is a cooperative effort. We're proud to report it, and we appreciate the recognition, so thank you all very much.
Thank you, Roger, and thank you to the 4th of July Committee. Item 15, discussion and possible action regarding approving reappointments to the following boards and commissions. A, Charter Review Commission, and B, Friendswood Downtown Economic Development Corporation.
Motion approved.
Do I have a second? Got a motion and a second?
Can we get you to read the names?
Yeah, I'm going to read them. The name, Charter Review, Jeff Moser, moved. Jim Barr is recommended. Friendswood Downtown Economic Development Corporation, Pat McGinnis, Rebecca Hillenberg, Paul Marks, Elmer Johnson Jr., Ron Cox, Trey Hill, Alton Todd. Got a motion and a second. Do I have any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? All those opposed? Show it to be unanimous. Discussion and possible action regarding directing the city attorney's preparation of the certificate of formation for the Type B Corporation. Do I have a motion?
I'll make the motion.
Do I have a second? Second. Discussion. Seeing none, all those in favor? All those opposed? Discussion and possible action regarding disposition of RFP number 2016-05 for construction of Lake Friendswood Park amenities. Do I hear a motion? Do I have a second? Discussion. Do we have any discussion, though? I understand. Do you want to hear from Patrick?
I would like to know exactly what it's gonna be done.
You want to hear from him?
I really wanna hear from him.
Okay, Patrick, go ahead and tell us.
I'd briefly like to hear from him.
Briefly, I like that.
Mayor Pro Tem, what we're planning on doing is having a 10-foot concrete path all the way around the lake. There will be a floating dock for fishing. There will be a second dock to allow for a kayak launch, both located on, I would say, the West Ranch side of the lake. There will be scattered throughout. There'll be benches, so if you can't make the almost mile-long trek, you can sit down and rest and look out onto the water. There are some barbecue pits, and there's some picnic tables. at specific locations, not scattered throughout, but just at a couple different locations. And also the Friendswood Development Corporation will be doing the bathrooms and pavilion.
Go ahead.
To be clear, it's Friendswood Development Corporation that's doing it, or is it the West Ranch Management District that's doing it, the bathroom?
Every meeting that I've been in is, I'm sorry, I'll let.
Patrick stated it correctly. Friendswood Development Corporation is fronting the funds and then getting reimbursed.
By the
through
West Ranch Management District,
Correct.
okay, so, I'm not trying to be a killjoy here, but,
Don't.
just be, folks in West Ranch should know that they're the ones paying for that piece of it, so, all right.
We have a motion and a second? Was that brief enough? Yeah. All those in favor? All those opposed? Show it to be unanimous. Oh.
Oh, man.
This could be a long one. Discussion and possible action regarding the election of Mayor Pro Tem.
I'd like to nominate Jim Hill to repeat as Mayor Pro Tem.
I'll second it.
Wow. You got 2 votes. We have a motion and a second. Any discussion?
Oh, yeah. It goes without discussion. There's no
Just a question for the attorney.
All those in favor? All those opposed? 19, discussion and possible action regarding approval of a change order for the Whispering Pines Ave Friendswood Link Road project related to the addition of a transfer lane. Do I have a motion?
Motion to approve.
Do I have a
Second.
And it's $800 higher than I thought it would be, but 10,008?
10,872, yes, sir.
Oh, $872 more than I thought.
Yes, sir.
That's my only comment.
I second his comment.
I would say that would be more my error, that the number was the same.
It
I
was?
may have reported it as $10,000 even, so the error was on me.
You did.
Take it out as merit.
Yeah.
Okay.
No vacation this year.
All those in favor? All those opposed? How long before they'll be finished with that, Patrick? Real quick.
Paving wise, they've completed all the paving on the main lanes. David White's trying to get done by the August 1st meeting, but I kind of anticipate it'll be the first meeting in September.
Okay.
That we're here. But substantial completion should be done by the August 1st meeting.
And that includes that lane, right?
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
It's done.
Is it?
Discussion, item 20, go ahead. Did you want to say something?
Question about that little piece of road.
Yes, sir.
It's only a few hundred yards down, if that, before there's another road that turns to the right, past the school. How
Yes.
far down is?
It's actually farther than one would think, but I would have to measure it to be exact. Because the
So
section.
we're already committed to doing it, and we'll be finished by that period of time.
Yes, sir. And in fact, Mayor Pro Tem was right. The contractor has already preemptively poured the concrete, although we told him that we needed council authorization to pay him for it.
Item 20, discussion and possible action regarding approval of a change order for the Whispering Pines Ave Friendswood Link Road Project and Timberfield Estates. Do I hear a motion?
I'll make the motion.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Discussion?
Can-
Councilmember Rocky, then Councilmember Enox, then Councilmember Gustafson.
Wow. All right. There was a letter from the people in Timberfield about damage to the fence and pock marks and all that, and concrete on the wrought iron fence and all that. Is that included in this, getting repaired, or what's going to happen with that?
The contractor will be repairing the scuff marks, the concrete that they got on it, and all of those things. Among the things that they did include in there is that they damaged 8 particular pickets at various sections on the fence. Those various sections would be 5 separate sections, and that's what I'm proposing, is that in lieu of just replacing the individual pickets, that funds in the project could replace that entire section. That's 5 sections out of 24.
So Patrick, with this, will everything be remedied and we'll be good to go, or are there still outstanding issues?
There'll be some other things that we're doing in-house. We do have a licensed irrigator. Actually, James has a licensed irrigator. He's probably first now hearing of this. We will be doing the repairs on the irrigation system to get to where they propose to have flower beds. We'll be doing that in-house. We will be doing some of the electrical work to get lights on the columns themselves in-house as well.
So we'll be seeing future items coming to pay for those?
I
or-
do not anticipate seeing future items. to
This
pay
is the
for
last
those.
one.
Yes, sir.
Councilmember Gustafson?
To be clear, this is a $5,800 change order. That's it?
Yes, sir. That
Okay.
is the intent.
All right.
Seeing no more discussion, all those in favor? All those opposed? Show to be unanimous. Resolutions, consideration and possible action regarding the following. A, Resolution 2016-14, resolution of City Council of the City of Friendswood, Texas, authorizing and approving the hazard mitigation grant application. Do I hear a motion?
Motion to approve.
Discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? All those opposed? B, Resolution R 2016-15, a resolution of the City of Friendswood, Texas, Galveston, Harris counties endorsing the appointment of one new member to the Galveston County United Board of Health. Do I hear a motion?
I'll make the motion.
Discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? All those opposed? 22A. Ordinance number 2016-27, second and final reading of an ordinance approving a vacation of a portion of a public right-of-way. Do I hear a motion?
Motion to approve.
Yeah.
Yeah. Second.
The agenda says first reading, but it's a second reading. Yeah. Okay, we have motion and second discussion. Seeing none, all those in favor? All those opposed? Okay, ordinance T 2016-31, first reading of an ordinance amending the zoning classification of 1100 to 1110 South Friendswood Drive.
Before you make the motion, P and Z did vote unanimously to approve, forward a positive recommendation on this.
Got a motion? The P and Z voted unanimously to do it.
To approve it.
No, unanimously for a positive recommendation.
I'll make the motion.
We got a second?
Second.
Tie goes to Hill. We have motion second. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? All those opposed? 22C. Ordinance number 2016-32, first and final reading of an ordinance authorizing the issuance of general obligation bond, refunding bond series 2016A. I move to adopt an ordinance authorizing the issuance and sale of City of Friendswood, Texas general obligation refunding bond series 2016A. Do I have a second? Second.
Okay.
That's, okay. We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? All those opposed? D, first and final reading of an ordinance adopting budget amendments, amendment number 9 to the original general budget of the City of Friendswood fiscal year 2015-2016. Do I hear a motion?
Motion approved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? All those opposed? Show to be unanimous. Communication from the mayor and council members. Video. Councilmember Gustafson? The video is going to play now of us reading the Declaration of Independence. We're going to be done. You don't have to watch the video. Yes. When in the course of human events, it becomes necessary for one people to dissolve the political bands which have connected them with another, and to assume among the powers of the earth a separate and equal station to which laws of nature and of nature's God entitle them.
A decent respect to the opinions of mankind requires that they should declare the causes which impel them to the separation.
We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, that they are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness.
That to secure these rights, governments are instituted among men, deriving their just powers from the consent of the governed.
That whenever any form of government becomes destructive of these ends, it is the right of the people to alter or to abolish it and to institute new government.
Laying its foundation on such principles and organizing its powers in such form as to them shall seem most likely to affect their safety and happiness.
Prudence, indeed, will dictate that governments long established should not be changed for light and transient causes.
And accordingly, all experience hath shown that mankind are more disposed to suffer while evils are sufferable than to right themselves by abolishing the forms to which they are accustomed.
But when a long train of abuses and usurpations, pursuing invariably the same object, evinces a design to reduce them under absolute despotism, it is their right, it is their duty to throw off such government and to pursue new guards for their future security.
Such has been the patient sufferance of these colonies, and such is now necessity which constrains them from altering their former system of government.
The history of the present King of Great Britain is a history of repeated injuries and usurpations, all having in direct object the establishment of an absolute tyranny over these states.
To prove this, let facts be submitted to a candid world.
He has refused his assent to laws, the most wholesome and necessary for the public good.
He has forbidden his governors to pass laws of immediate and pressing importance, unless suspended in their operation till his assets should be obtained.
And when so suspended, he has utterly neglected to attend to them.
He has refused to pass other laws for the accommodation of large districts of people, unless those people were willing to relinquish the right of representation in the legislature.
A right inestimable to them and formidable to tyrants only.
He has called together legislative bodies at places unusual, uncomfortable, and distant from the depository of their public records,
for the sole purpose of fatiguing them into compliance with his measures.
He has dissolved the representative houses repeatedly for opposing with manly firmness his invasions on the rights of the people.
He has refused for a long time, after such disillusions, to cause others to be elected.
Whereby the legislative powers, incapable of annihilation, have returned to the people at large for their exercise.
The state, remaining in the meantime exposed to all the dangers of invasion from without and convulsions within.
He has endeavored to prevent the population of these states, for that purpose obstructing the laws for the naturalization of foreigners.
Refusing to pass others to encourage their migration hither and raising the conditions of new appropriations of lands.
He has obstructed the administration of justice by refusing his assent to laws for establishing judiciary powers.
He has made judges dependent on his will alone for the tenure of their offices and the amount and payment of their salaries.
He has erected a multitude of new offices and sent hither swarms of officers to harass our people and eat out their substance.
He has kept among us, in times of peace, standing armies without the consent of our legislature.
He has effected to render the military independent of and superior to the civil power.
He has combined with others to subject us to a jurisdiction foreign to our Constitution and unacknowledged by our laws, giving his assent to their acts of pretended legislation.
For quartering large bodies of armed troops among us.
For protecting them by a mock trial from punishment for any murders which they should commit on the inhabitants of these states.
For cutting off our trade with all parts of the world.
For imposing taxes on us without our consent. For depriving us in many cases of the benefits of trial by jury.
For transporting us beyond seas to be tried for pretended offenses.
For abolishing the free system of English laws in a neighboring province, establishing therein an arbitrary government,
and enlarging its boundaries so as to render it at once an example and fit instrument for introducing the same absolute rule into these colonies.
For taking away our charters, abolishing our most valuable laws, and altering fundamentally the forms of our governments.
For suspending our own legislatures and declaring themselves invested with the power to legislate for us in all cases whatsoever.
He has abdicated government here by declaring us out of his protection and waging war against us.
He has plundered our seas, ravaged our coasts, burned our towns, and destroyed the lives of our people.
He is at this time transporting large armies of foreign mercenaries to complete the works of death, desolation, and tyranny already begun with circumstances of cruelty, perfidy scarcely paralleled in the most barbarous ages, and totally unworthy of the head of a civilized nation.
He has constrained our fellow citizens, taken captive on the high seas to bear arms against their country.
To become the executioners of their friends and brethren, or to fall on themselves by their hands.
He has excited domestic insurrections among us, and has endeavored to bring upon the inhabitants of our frontiers the merciless Indian savages, whose known rule of warfare is an undistinguished destruction of all ages, sexes, and conditions.
In every stage of these oppressions, we have petitioned for redress in the most humble terms.
Our repeated petitions have been answered only by repeated injury.
A prince whose character is thus marked by every act, which may define a tyrant, is unfit to be the ruler of a free people.
Nor have we been wanting in attention to our British brethren. We have warned them from time to time of attempts by their legislator to extend an unwarrantable jurisdiction over us.
We have reminded them of the circumstances of our immigration and settlement here.
We have appealed to their native justice and magnanimity.
And we have conjured them by the ties of our common kindred to disavow these usurpations, which would inevitably interrupt our connections and correspondence.
They too have been deaf to the voice of justice and of consanguinity.
We must therefore acquiesce in the necessity which denounces our separation, and hold them as we hold the rest of mankind, enemies in war, in peace, friends.
We, therefore, the representatives of the United States of America, in General Congress assembled,
appealing to the Supreme Judge of the world for the rectitude of our intentions, do, in the name and by authority of the good people of these colonies, solemnly publish and declare
that these united colonies are, and of right ought to be free and independent states, that they are absolved from all allegiance to the British Crown,
and that all political connection between them and the state of Great Britain is and ought to be totally dissolved.
And that as free and independent states, they have the full power to levy war, conclude peace, contract alliances, establish commerce,
and to do all other acts and things which independent states may of right do.
And for the support of this declaration, with a firm reliance on the protection of divine providence,
we mutually pledge to each other our lives, our fortunes, and our sacred honor.
Consent agenda. Do I hear a motion?
Motion approved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? All those opposed? We're adjourned.